Let's see if I know how to do this thing. Oh, I think I'm already live. Okay. All right. Well, I want to welcome everyone to our session on diabetes. You know, diabetes is a disease that no one wants to have. Worldwide, we have over 500 million people with diabetes. And in the United States, we have over 120 million people, 120 million people who are probably diabetic, pre-diabetic, or undiagnosed diabetes. And since November is Diabetes Awareness Month, we decided to come on every Thursday at about this time to discuss diabetes. You know, in our office and our wellness center, we've seen so many patients who have done well with healthy lifestyle. My name is Dr. Cooper Dockery. I'm an internal medicine physician, and I practice general internal medicine as well as lifestyle medicine. I live here in the Rio Grande Valley, and I have been practicing medicine for many years. I left medical school in 1991. That's a long time now. Did a residency in New York, and then I moved to the Rio Grande Valley. You know, when I got to the valley, I practiced regular internal medicine the way I was taught in medical school. And then in 2010, I decided to change to a holistic approach to medicine. And I have been very, very happy because I've seen so many of my patients that have done well, just tweaking their lifestyle. Now, I'm going to try and share this on another platform before bringing in our main speaker. I want to welcome Tamika. Tamika is one of our health coaches, lifestyle coaches. She joined us recently. She's doing a fantastic job. Tamika is the one that got us connected with Ashwin, which you learn about. I have Miss Donna Melville that joined us as well. She is one of our, I'll let her introduce herself in a minute. And then I have Miss Hilton and Miss McPhee. But give me a minute so I could share this, and then I will have everybody introduce themselves, and then we go in with the main speaker. So give me a second here. As a matter of fact, while I'm trying to share, I'm going to bring on Tamika, talk a little bit about yourself, and then I go to Donna. Go ahead, Tamika, unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Tamika. I'm currently at Cooper Wellness Center and Disease Prevention Center. So I did my training at Uchee Institute. That's where I met Ashwin, the Lifestyle Educator Program. I was there from 2018, July 2018, up until this year, September 2020. So I did a course in 2019, which was for 1 year, and that's when I became a lifestyle educator. So I'm here in the Valley, Texas, and enjoying this new experience working with Dr. Cooper and the rest of the family.
Very good, very good. We welcome you, Tamika, lifestyle
you.
medicine educator. And then we have Miss Donna. Donna, why don't you come on and tell us something about yourself?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Donna Melville. I am a community health educator, a gospel medical missionary from formerly from the Northeastern Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. First met Dr. Cooper about a couple months ago, and long story short, I am here at the Wellness Center, loving. I just came in on Tuesday. I was here on Tuesday officially. I'm loving it since the last couple of days. So we're looking forward to many, many blessings coming this way. Have a good evening, everyone.
Good evening. All right. And then we have somebody else on the line. I think that's Sister Hilton. You can introduce yourself if you wish. All right.
Oh yeah, I'm Muriel Hilton. I'm active participant. Yeah,
Okay.
I met Tamika at Utah and also Ashwin while I was there. And I've done a medical missionary course with Naaman Wilson in Tennessee. And now I'm doing a second one with James Lou. And I've got all the books in my bed here studying. And I'm just hoping to learn more. And I'm also with Owner's Manual in East Texas.
Very good. We welcome you. All righty. We have one more person who's Peggy. Peggy
Oh,
McPhee.
oh yeah. I know she's on mute. Sister Peggy. Oh yeah, she's mute.
Hi, my name is PJ McPhee. Sister Hilton invited, well, actually a nurse from a hospital called me today. She know I had been to Uchee Pines and Wildwood a couple of times, and she asked me to talk to one of her patients. And I didn't know really as a patient, I didn't want to give her any wrong information. So I called Sister Hilton, and Sister Hilton gave me a couple of numbers and said that you guys were beyond. So I'm just here visiting to get some information. And I was hoping that that young lady, she has cancer, would have been on tonight. I'm not sure what she was on at 6 o'clock. We were told it was going to be at 6 o'clock. So we waited, and I'm not sure if she's on or coming on, but I'm just here visiting for the information. And I thank you for the invitation.
Very good. We welcome you. And I'm sorry from the mix up in time. That was my fault. But anyway, we welcome you. And next time we're on, we'll ensure that we have the right time. All right. So I want to welcome everyone, those that are watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Periscope. We welcome you. We have about an hour to go. We're going to be discussing diabetes type 2, essentially, because we do know that diabetes type 2 is a lifestyle disease. Studies have shown that 80 to 90% of patients who have diabetes type 2 can actually reverse their diabetes with a holistic approach to lifestyle medicine. And that is what we're going to be here discussing. We have Ashwin, a lifestyle medicine educator, and we want to welcome him to the platform. And Ashwin, I'm going to ask you to just introduce yourself to our audience and our listeners.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Cooper and everyone. Good to see everyone again, those who I've seen. And some of you, I just see your names, but that's okay. Good to see your names again. Yes, I am originally, my name is Ashwin Sukumaran, originally from Maryland. And I have been in the field of lifestyle medicine for almost 9 years. I serve as a lifestyle practitioner on the medical staff of Uchee Pines, where I've been here for the last 6.5 years. And it has truly been my pleasure to see these simple natural methods work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what I want to share today is what I believe to be a very rational method, and what I believe to be a God-given method for helping people with chronic illnesses. And more specifically tonight, as Dr. Cooper mentioned, we're going to talk about diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like me to get into it right now, or was there?
Yes, the time is your Ashwin.
Okay.
After you have made the presentation, then we'll probably take some questions and do some comments. So we want to welcome you, Ashwin, to the platform. I know there are many people that are waiting to hear you, and I know that there are a lot of listeners who will receive significant benefit from what you have to share. A lot of people believe that when they're told they have diabetes, then they're going to be on medication for the rest of their lives. That is not so.
Right.
We actually had a patient last week. Well, she started her 8 weeks of wellness program a week ago, and she came in to us yesterday. And she was literally in tears, you know. She said she now got off all her insulin just in 1 week of changing to a holistic approach to health, plant-based whole food, exercise, and stress management. So I know you have a lot to share with us. So the time is yours, Ashwin.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And yeah, a lot to share. So I'll try to keep it short. Let me share my screen here.
Very good.
And just give me 1 second. Let me get my presentation up here. All right, so you should be seeing something of my screen.
Let's see. It's dark. It's black.
Okay, good.
Go ahead.
Right there. There it is.
You go.
Okay, great. So I bring you greetings again from Uchee Pines Institute, where it was founded by those two individuals you see there, Doctors Calvin and Agatha Thrash, and they were superstar atheist physicians that you had to wait months to get an appointment with. Mm. And they each individually had an experience with God and went from being atheists to being Seventh-day Adventist Christians, incidentally, and they took all of their brilliance in medicine and threw it full time into missionary work, and more specifically, they dedicated the rest of their lives to helping people using natural, rational remedies. And so I'm honored to be here at Uchee Pines and to actually I'm sitting right here in Dr. Agatha's office, and I'm just honored to be a part of this work. And in the spirit of all that they stood for, and also in the way that I've personally been led on this journey, if it's okay with you, I'd like to just say a short word of prayer to start.
Go ahead.
Father in heaven, thank you, Lord, for this time that we're able to talk about this subject, and I ask that you would give us wisdom as the great physician. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 So here we are located in Seal, Alabama. There's a quick look of our lifestyle center from the sky, and that's what it would look like if you came in. And we have a lifestyle center because there are people who need help, right? From a lifestyle standpoint. So here's just a few pictures of our place where we're at. I show this to everyone everywhere I go. And I say, come visit us sometime, even if it's just for a short visit. And we do train others to do what we call medical missionary work. And we also have a vegan plant-based restaurant and a health food store that people can come and get some of the things that we're going to talk about as well. And for more information, we also do have a YouTube page and our website. And we also do virtual sessions if anyone's interested in hearing more of these kind of lectures or just being a part of our Uchee Pines Fellowship. We'd love to connect with you more. So without further ado, our subject is diabetes. And it's so important that we talk about this because it is so rampant, not just in the United States, but in all across the world. And it used to be thought of that it was only in westernized countries, what we call first world countries, but now it's pretty much throughout the world. I mean, my background, my parents are Indian, and I have people in my family who are diabetes or who have diabetes. I was like, they're not diabetes, they are diabetic, and others who are even in other places who are diabetic where you wouldn't think they would be. So we need to understand what this is and how can we combat it, because it's a problem, right? So here are some US statistics. There's a total of about 30 million people who have diabetes. It's about 9% of the US population. 23 million are diagnosed and 7.2 million are undiagnosed. So that's about a total of 84 million adults aged 18 years or older who have pre-diabetes. Now, pre-diabetes is when you're not quite diabetic, but your blood sugars are still elevated and you're heading in that direction, and you have what we call insulin resistance, which we'll talk about. And then 65 years or older, there are 23 million adults age 65 or older who have prediabetes. Now, there's more than 100 million US adults who are living with diabetes or prediabetes. In 2015, 30 million Americans. We saw that one earlier. Nearly 1 in 4 adults are living with diabetes. The number of people diagnosed with diabetes globally has more than quadrupled in the past 35 years, from 100 million in 1980 to 422 million in 2014. So diabetes is really, it's a big problem, right? A global burden. People with diabetes have their life expectancy shortened by 5 to 10 years or more. Diabetes also contributes to 160,000 deaths per year. Have a 2 to 4 times increased risk for stroke. Over 50,000 diabetics are on dialysis or have transplants yearly. There's also an increased risk of breast and uterine cancers and other cancers with diabetes. So what is diabetes? Well, diabetes is a disease that occurs when your blood glucose, also called your blood sugar, is too high. And what is too high? So most people will say, well, as long as it's below 120, it's fine. But what we found is that people will still become pre-diabetic and eventually diabetic, even if their blood sugars are floating in the 90s. So what we prefer is if your blood sugar stays, your fasting blood sugar is no higher than 89, right? Anything over that in lifestyle medicine, we would call it elevated. Your blood glucose is your main source of energy and comes from the food you eat. And insulin, a hormone made by the pancreas, helps glucose from food get into your cells to be used for energy. Sometimes your body doesn't make enough or any insulin, or it doesn't use that insulin that it's producing very well. The glucose then stays in your blood and doesn't reach your cells. And that would be type 1 diabetes. Over time, having too much glucose in your blood can cause health problems. And this is what what they were saying in this article published in NIH. They're saying that over time, that diabetes has no cure, but you can take steps to manage your diabetes and stay healthy. I'm here to say that, well, I've seen type 2 diabetes reversed. And I know there's a growing community of healthcare professionals who are seeing type 2 diabetes reversed, and even hope for type 1 diabetes. I'm hoping to talk about that if we get to it. Diabetes is a chronic disorder of carbohydrate, fat, and protein metabolism characterized by fasting elevation of blood glucose levels and a greatly increased risk of cardiovascular disease, renal disease, and neuropathy, nerve damage, right? So kidney problems, heart problems, nerve damage, other complications, hypertension, retinopathy, so eye problems, renal disease, kidney problems, neuropathy, we mentioned that, amputations, periodontal disease, pain, depression, and even autoimmune dysfunctions. So exactly how does diabetes happen? What does it look like in the body? Well, it looks something like this, but I thought that's a little bit complicated to go into, and of course we can talk biochemistry, but I like to simplify it. And so I made it look like this, all right? So that round blue circle is your cell. And over there on the right, you see that thing that looks like a football goalpost. That's your insulin receptor. And the thing on the left is the door that glucose comes into the cell through, okay? So we think of the insulin receptor kind of like a lock, and we think of insulin kind of like a key. So we'll look at that in a second. And we look at GLUT4, or the glucose transporter, which is the door, as the door. And that door is actually inside the cell, and it's pushed to the membrane of the cell to allow glucose to be pulled into the cell. Okay, so how does that work? Well, you eat, right? And when you eat, your body will digest the foods, and we break down your proteins and your carbohydrates and fats and whatever. But eventually your carbohydrates especially will get broken down to glucose or blood sugar, right? So that glucose enters the bloodstream, so your blood glucose increases, right? Now that's not a bad thing. That is a normal, healthy process for blood sugar to go up when you eat, right? And then you have your pancreas, this long, elongated organ that sits kind of right beneath, around your stomach area and right around the first part of your small intestine, your duodenum. And it looks like, kind of like that. No, that's not corn. That's your pancreas. And so your pancreas will start producing this hormone called insulin, right? Now, again, insulin is the key to unlock the cell, to open the door to allow glucose to come in, right? So here, when we eat, we have glucose outside of the cell, and your cell needs it for energy. So we need that glucose outside to come inside the cell, right? And so your pancreas produces insulin, and that insulin will connect to the insulin receptor, which will then cause this chemical reaction inside the cell, which will cause this door to be manifest through the cell wall and allow the glucose to be transported inside the cell. And then the cell can use that glucose for whatever it needs, right? So this is a good thing. This is a normal, healthy process that happens with all of us, even right now, right? Without you thinking about it. So let's talk about diabetes. Let's say your insulin goes to try to unlock the cell, kind of like I said, it's like a lock and key. So let's say you go to put the key in the keyhole, but I heard someone say once, someone put chewing gum inside. That wouldn't be very nice, right? So let's say there's in the case of diabetes, especially type 2, there's something that's kind of inhibiting the insulin from working, and that can happen inside the cell as well. And that thing that inhibits insulin from working well is fat. Okay. And so what happens is when we eat, our blood sugar continues to go up and our bodies start producing insulin. But because of the fat that's involved, so you see here, our glucose starts increasing, but because the fat is blocking that insulin from working well, so then we start having this accumulation of insulin floating outside the cell.
Mm-hmm.
That is the picture of what we call type 2 diabetes or insulin resistance. It's when your body the cells are resisting the insulin and therefore glucose from coming into the cells, right? So insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, is one of the hallmarks is high glucose and high insulin. Okay. Now, let's say over time, with your blood sugars being high for so long, and your pancreas, the beta islet cells of your pancreas are constantly producing high amounts of insulin, and over time they eventually burn out and they stop producing insulin, right? Now this would be very similar to what we call type 1 diabetes, right? So type 1 diabetes, usually it's thought that there's an autoimmune process that attacks the pancreas, the beta islet cells specifically from, and they're, because of the inflammation and all that stuff, the cells are not producing enough insulin, right? Or for some reason, it's not producing any insulin, right? Now, in this case, you can have type 2 diabetes that gets so bad and out of control that it can essentially become type 1 diabetes, right? And we've seen that a number of times here as well. So it's very important if someone has type 2 diabetes to get on top of it as soon as possible, right? So this insulin resistance is what we're going to focus on, not so much of the insulin deficiency. And that's because it has everything to do with our lifestyle. Right? So here's some insulin resistance facts. Insulin resistance defined as decreased cellular sensitivity to insulin and varies by the cell type, the organ, and the particular metabolic pathway. Insulin resistance is associated with an inflammatory state, and that such activation of inflammatory pathways sustains insulin resistance and ultimately leads to the development of metabolic syndrome. Insulin resistance results from inherited and acquired influences. Okay, so heredity, yes, can cause some mutations of insulin receptors, the glucose transporters, which are the doors, and the signaling proteins inside the cell. Yes, so genetics can play a part in that. But then there's the acquired things, which is physical inactivity, diet, medications, you know, high free fatty acids, things like that. And of course, the aging process. But notice this, obesity is the most common cause of insulin resistance. And it's associated mainly with post-receptor abnormalities, so the process that happens in the cell. But it's also associated with decreased number of insulin receptors, so decreased keyholes outside the cell. Very interesting. Insulin resistance in muscles causes reduced glucose disposal from the bloodstream, and insulin resistance in liver causes greater glucose production, right? And the impairment of insulin secretion by the pancreatic beta cells is a critical feature that leads to hyperglycemia when the amount of insulin secreted at the time of the insulin response to glucose are defective. Scientists have discovered that abnormalities in fatty acid metabolisms cause inappropriate buildup of fat in muscle tissues, the liver, and other organs. So that buildup of fat, lipotoxicity, with an amplified plasma-free fatty acid concentration is the hallmark of insulin resistance, right? And that those accumulations of fats, right, in the blood, in the cells, and everything else, they're also the things that will cause other damage as well. So that fat gets oxidized, and it can contribute to cardiovascular disease and things like that. So I'm not going to bore you to death with all of that stuff, but I did want to share this thing about fat, because oftentimes we think that diabetes has more to do with how much sugar you eat, and yes, sugar will influence your your blood sugars, but the greater problem that seems to be more occult, more hidden for most people is fat, right? And so all of us, we have fat cells, and the more let's how should I say this? The bigger your fat cells are, the more stuff they produce, and those things that they produce tend to be inflammatory. They also do produce certain hormones as well, and so that inflammation can also cause further problems as well. So there's a lot that fat is connected with, not just with diabetes. So your traditional recommendations for dealing with diabetes, your doctor may put you on some anti-diabetic medications, metformin, glycoside, Janumet, whatever. The new one, Trulicity, I didn't even know about that one until recently. Then there's, of course, insulin. So we produce our own insulin, but sometimes you may be put on exogenous insulin, insulin from outside your body that will get injected. And people with type 1 diabetes will be dependent on insulin. But oftentimes people with type 2 diabetes, even though they're producing insulin, they still get put on insulin.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand that quite so, because there is a better way of dealing with that. And then, of course, because we're on these anti-diabetic medications and because we're on the insulins, we're often told these dietary recommendations to eat all throughout the day. And that to me seems to be a bit counterintuitive, because what happens when you eat? We looked at it right at the beginning. Every time you eat, your blood sugar goes up, right? And so the whole definition of diabetes, I mean, it's the hallmark, it's insulin resistance, but it's also characterized by high blood sugars. So by eating small meals throughout the day, what we're doing is we're actually increasing the number of blood sugar and insulin spikes throughout the day, and we're perpetuating diabetes. Now, oftentimes people are told to eat several meals through the day, not because of diabetes, but because of the medications. The medications will cause blood sugar to go down, right? And so, so to make sure they don't go too low, we make sure that people are eating lots. But that just doesn't seem to make sense, because the whole point is if you're diabetic, your blood sugars are high, and you want them to come down in a normal, natural, safe way, right? So how can we prevent or treat diabetes from a natural standpoint without drugs? So I'll tell you what we do at Uchee Pines. One of the first things we do when someone comes here with diabetes, whether they're on insulin or whether they're on metformin or whatever, one of the first things we'll often do for most people is immediately take them off of their medications, specifically their anti-diabetic medications. So their metformin, their insulin, whatever. And what we'll often do is we'll start them with a fast. So fasting, complete caloric restriction, meaning no food and just not even juices or anything like that, just water and or herbal teas. And so we would, of course, you don't want somebody to take insulin while they're fasting, because then their blood sugar will go too low and that can be dangerous, right? So, so we pull them off of anything that might throw their blood sugars too low, and we have them fast. Why fasting? Well, there's actually entire lectures just on this thing, so I'm not even going to get into it. But basically, your body has stored sources of fuel. And it's very selective in how it grabs those things to use them for energy, right? So you have glycogen, which is stored in your liver. It's stored also around your muscles. And when you are eating, of course, your body is using whatever you ate for fuel, right? But we're not grazing all the time. I hope we're not grazing all the time, right? And so on the times when we're not eating, our body still needs fuel, right? Otherwise, we'd have to constantly be eating. And so in those times when we're not eating, when we're fasting, our body will use glycogen and break it down and use it to make glucose, right? So that we can have energy. And it will deplete it from the muscles, it'll deplete it from the liver, and then it will eventually turn to fat. So your body will now pull from your fat cells, it'll pull triglycerides, it'll pull your fatty acids, and it will pull them out and it will use it for energy. We call it gluconeogenesis, right? And so doing a fast, usually we start with, if the person is able to, if they have enough weight on them, they're not skinny mini, but if they have enough weight on them, usually someone can fast at least 3 to 5 days. And during that time, you'll see that their glycogen gets depleted, they're starting to burn fat, their blood sugars come down nicely, and that's without any medications. Step 2, we want to see people exercising. Now, I'm not saying that you go for a marathon while you're fasting. Please don't do that. And please don't tell anyone I said that, because that's not what I'm saying. But it is important to exercise when you're fasting, when you're not fasting, right? Lack of physical activity is estimated to cause almost 2 million deaths globally each year. And for every hour of walking, life expectancy may increase by 2 hours. So that's a good thing. You can increase your life just by walking, right? But here's an interesting little thing that I see here, which is that there's an increased risk of diabetes correlated with the number of hours that you spend watching TV. And that's because the vast majority of people who are watching TV are not running a marathon while watching TV, right? Or usually laying down and eating, or sitting down and eating, or doing something. So there's something about the sedentary lifestyle that also contributes to diabetes. So step 1, we want to fast. Step 2, we want to get more active than we actually are, and that can happen after your fast, if fasting can make people feel weak. Step 3, we want to consume a whole food, plant-based diet, an emphasis on low fat, low glycemic. Most people will try to say emphasis on low carbs, but we're just seeing in the research that a carb-free or low-carb diet doesn't actually fix diabetes. The issue is fat, right? Our bodies need macronutrients, right? So you have carbohydrates, which gets broken down to glucose. You have fats, which gets broken down to fatty acids. Then you have proteins, which gets broken down to amino acids. And our bodies also need micronutrients, right? Such as vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals, plant chemicals, right? And those things are antioxidants usually that do tremendous good for reversing disease in the body. But of course, the diet that most people eat, it's high in calories, it's high in fat, especially saturated fats. It's high in animal proteins, it's low in fiber, it's low in antioxidants, it's low in phytochemicals. And some examples of this might look something like that, or like that, or dare I say it, like that, or like that. Oh, but French fries are vegan, yes. But that can be unhealthy too, right? Cocaine's vegan too, by the way. That's not very healthy for you. And oh no, not that. Yeah, there are some things that are that look good, they appear good. Lots of people like it. It seems appealing, but the reality is it's killing us, right? Here's an article. Dietary fat, insulin sensitivity, and the metabolic syndrome. And I just took a little excerpt from there, and they say epidemiological evidence and interventional studies clearly show that in humans, saturated fat significantly worsened insulin resistance, while monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fat improve it through modifications in the composition of cell membranes, which reflect, at least in part, dietary fat composition. So what does that mean? So saturated fat's bad, monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, potentially better. Now, you can overdo anything. So some people will take this and run and say, therefore, I can have 50 avocados a day. I would say, well, let's hold off, right? We gotta have temperance as well. So here are some foods that are high in saturated fats. So anything that has cheese, meat, eggs, dairy, cakes, biscuits, butter. Yeah, all that stuff that people generally eat, right? And a lot of your fried foods and your oily foods tend to be these things as well. Versus healthy monounsaturated fats like avocados, nuts, olives. You can get also healthy omega-3 polyunsaturated fats, so flax seeds, hemp seeds, walnuts, chia seeds, soybeans, and yes, even green leafy vegetables, veggies. So what we really would like people to do is to eat a whole foods, plant-based diet, which is also low glycemic. So what does low glycemic mean? It means that it's not going to cause your blood sugars to spike so tremendously, right? So you'd want to eat a diet which has lots of green leafy vegetables, which has good amount of plant protein, so beans, legumes, tofu, whatever. Some healthy fats. Notice I said some, not a lot, right? So some healthy fats, so avocados, nuts, flax seeds, things like that. You want to have some low glycemic fruits, so grapefruits, Granny Smith apples, berries, kiwis, peaches. And I know the question's coming, well, my doctor said I can't eat grapefruit. Well, if you're not on your metformin and your, whatever things, then you can actually, and it tends to do very well with people who are diabetic. And of course, some whole grains. I said some, not a lot. So the things that you really want to limit, you don't want to eliminate, but you want to limit it, and that's because, and that would be the carbohydrates. And I say this because a lot of people overdo the carbohydrates. So we have people who are carbitarians, where you eat like tons and tons of rice or tons and tons of potatoes or whatever it is. So we really got to cut back and not eat so much of those, because remember, carbohydrates get broken down to glucose, right? So if you don't want to see too many glucose spikes, you want to limit that to not overdo it on that. And you want to have some healthy fats, not a lot of healthy fats, but some, everything in moderation. And then of course, lots of the green leafy vegetables and the proteins and stuff, which are not going to cause dramatic insulin spikes. Another interesting thing, you have a couple more slides, I'll wrap up here. Another interesting thing is that we tend to eat more of the unhealthy things, right? And that's because they're high in calorie, they're low in fiber, they don't take up as much space in our stomach, so we don't, so we continue to eat a lot of those things. So for example, eating 400 calories of oil is really easy to do. Eating 400 calories of chicken is really easy to do. But you try eating 400 calories of broccoli or 400 calories of celery. You can't do it. It's hard to do because you would get filled with that fiber so quickly, right? So we tend to overeat on a lot of those things that are bad for us. And but if we were to eat some of the things that are good for us, it would actually fill us up, and we wouldn't be eating so many calories, and we wouldn't be, which wouldn't contribute to the fat gain, right? Another interesting article here is linking breakfast skipping with type 2 diabetes. So here's another bad habit that a lot of people have, and I'll say, oh, I've been guilty of this so many times. You're just rushing to get out of the house, and you might grab something, you might not grab something, but they found here, I just circled it at the bottom for time's sake, breakfast skipping is associated with a significantly increased risk of type 2 diabetes. Regular breakfast consumption is potentially important for the prevention of type 2 diabetes. So it's important to get a good breakfast, and one that is, again, that is devoid of all animal products and filled with the good stuff. So here are the recommendations. Whole food plant-based diet consisting largely of fruits and vegetables, and more specifically the low glycemic fruits and your green leafy vegetables, right? If you're diabetic. 2 or 3 meals a day spaced 5 to 6 hours apart, always beginning with breakfast. So remember, the more you eat, the more frequently you eat through the day, the more sugar spikes and the more insulin spikes. So if we can limit those, then we limit the hyperglycemia through the day. And you want to give each meal time to digest, so 5 or 6 hours apart, to allow what we call gastric emptying, where stomach is able to handle the contents and move it onto the intestines instead of it just sitting there and fermenting. Okay,
Mhm.
so it's very important. We want breakfast to be the largest meal, lunch not as large, and supper either small or absent. And if you're a diabetic, if you've been struggling with blood sugars, or if you look down and you can't see your toes, supper should probably be omitted, right? And that would be best. Why? Because then what we're actually doing is we are getting the benefit of what we call intermittent fasting, where you get to eat 2 meals a day and you get the benefit of fasting, which is depleting your glycogen and all that stuff and lowering blood sugar. You get those benefits, but without really starving yourself, because you get to eat again for breakfast. So if you eat well for breakfast, eat well for lunch, skip your supper, and instead of supper, go for a walk, right? Instead of that time spent in front of the TV, we can spend hours and hours in front of the TV. Instead, go for a walk, right? Even even 30 minutes a day increased activity will decrease your risk tremendously, right? And of course, no snacking, because that causes digestive dysfunction and delayed stomach emptying, right? And finally, there are some other things that you can also use to help with improving insulin sensitivity. So cinnamon, bitter melon, gymnema, sylvester, fenugreek, chromium picolinate. These are all things that have been used and shown to be a benefit, and we do use them in our lifestyle center here. So here's an article on gymnema sylvester. Now, I remember I mentioned in the beginning that there may even be some hope for type 1 diabetes in the future, or even now. I personally believe that God can heal anything, and he often will do it through these simple natural means. So notice what this article says here. Gymnema therapy appears to enhance endogenous insulin, possibly by regeneration or revitalization of the residual beta cells in insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus. Very interesting. So there's some evidence, and this was a human trial, if I'm not mistaken, a small study, that they say, well, hey, we started giving this to people and their insulin started increasing. And that's a good thing if someone has too low insulin, right? Here's another article here, the anti-diabetic effect of leaf extract of gymnema. And they say this data suggests that the beta cells may be regenerated, repaired in type 2 diabetic patients, right, on gymnema supplementation. This is supported by the appearance of raised insulin levels in the serum of patients after gymnema supplementation. And I mean, I could share many more. I'll share maybe one last one here. Chromium picolinate, so that's another one. This is straight from ADA. And they're basically saying chromium picolinate supplementation attenuates body weight gain and increases insulin sensitivity in subjects with type 2 diabetes. So there's lots of things that could be done. So again, the summary of the whole thing is this. We want to, we could start reversing diabetes, or at least getting into better management of our blood sugars by doing a fast, okay? And it's better to do this medically supervised if you can. So maybe going down to Dr. Cooper's Wellness Center, or coming up to Uchee Pines, or going somewhere where they know what they're doing and can help medically to supervise that. And so do that fast where without the medications. And of course, you consult your doctor or healthcare professional. I'm not telling you what to do, but these are some things that we've been able to do here and seen success with. So just sharing that. And it would be beneficial to do some fasting. It seems to be beneficial to increase exercise. It seems to be beneficial to go on a plant-based diet to eliminate all animal fats and all animal proteins from the diet and eat instead plant proteins and healthy plant fats, right? And to eat low glycemic and low, which would mean also low or limited carbs. I wouldn't say low carbs, but at least limited, because most people are overdoing it, right? And of course, spacing your meals out, eating them at the right time in the right amounts, right? And then taking some of those supplements can also help. And another thing that's worth mentioning is that stress also has something to do with this as well. I remember there was someone who came here with a certain type of cancer, and she also had type 1 diabetes, and she was not producing enough insulin. And I can't explain to you what happened, but I just remember that she was struggling internally, mentally, for a long time, and she realized she had to forgive someone. And when she went and chose to forgive that person and go and talk to them and make things right, I can't explain it to you, but I've seen some miracles in medicine, and her pancreas started producing more insulin after that time. So there's some component of stress that also affects the body in a very powerful way. And so it's important to find rest and peace. And I believe that's something that God can offer to each one of us because he loves us. So I'm going to yield the time at this time back to Dr. Cooper. I want to thank you for having me at this time.
Well, thank you so much. I think the audience has learned a lot. And I just want to make a couple of comments just to inform our listeners that if you have diabetes and you want to reverse it, then you need to find help. Don't go ahead and start fasting or stopping your medication without any medical guidance, all right?
Right.
We have to say that. And of course, you listened, you heard about nutrition, exercise, and I'm happy you added stress, because a lot of time what happens during stress is that stress will stimulate the adrenal glands to produce cortisol. The cortisol then will increase glucose production. And that is how patients who have diabetes and are stressed tend to have what's called uncontrolled diabetes, or patients who never had diabetes at all, who develop diabetes as a result of stress. Patients who are on steroids, for example, they might be going to the doctor for back pain and they're getting multiple injections in their spine or in their knees, or if they're placed in high dose steroids, that could also lead to diabetes. So there's some medication that could lead to diabetes. So stress is one.
Right.
And we did not address, for example, complication. We did that last week, where diabetes is one of the leading causes of chronic kidney disease, blindness, heart disease, and stroke. So diabetes is a disease that we have to ensure that we control well. And as we mentioned earlier on, that type 2 diabetes is really a lifestyle disease. And we can actually change your lifestyle and see that we can get off medication, we can prevent or reverse. So I want to thank you, Ashwin, for that detailed presentation. I don't know if anyone has any questions before I continue, some comments. So any questions from our listeners? I'm going to check the Facebook page, see if I have any questions, but anyone else there who is currently on the Zoom, do you have any questions?
Yes, can you explain how fasting affects diabetes? I think Ashley mentioned it in his presentation about fasting.
How fasting will decrease the blood sugar, right?
Uh-huh.
So there are two things, there's several things. One is that if you're not consuming the calories, the carbohydrate, then you're actually going to have a drop in your blood sugar. For example, patients who are hospitalized and they have possibly gastric bypass, and we're keeping them nothing by mouth, immediately the sugar drop. you see a significant drop in the sugar, we have to hold medication. So one thing is that there is no intake of carbs to convert into glucose. The next thing is that, as you mentioned, if we're not consuming, the body still needs energy. So the first energy source will be the glucose. So the body is going to be using the glucose, so we're going to decrease glucose. Then later on, when the glucose is all used up, the body goes to the fat storage to get the energy. So that is how fasting then will assist in lowering the blood sugar. You mentioned earlier on too that many people with diabetes are asked to consume 6 or 4 times a day. So they're consuming a lot, and then the doctor keep increasing the medication, whether it's insulin or pills, because they're over consuming, they're adding more calories, which get converted into glucose. So when I see my patients at the Cooper Wellness Center, I generally advocate 2 main meals, as you say, a large breakfast, moderate lunch, and a small to no evening meal. And the evening meal should be before 5 o'clock. You know, I have a friend who says, well, by 3 o'clock, you should consume everything. But there's some patients who they are so accustomed to having something in the evening that I generally say something light, a salad, dip with veggies or soup, but something very light. And then, as we mentioned again, the intermittent fasting, where we ask the patient to select 8 hours. 8 hours a day could be 8 to 4, where they consume all their meals, and then 16 hours of fasting. That is also going to stimulate the decrease in caloric intake. So if they decrease the amount of calories that they're consuming, that also going to lead to decrease in sugar as well as weight loss. Okay.
And if I can also add to that, one of the benefits as well with the fast is that your body is literally using up fat. You know, it's breaking down fats for energy. So the fat is that thing that is very much involved in insulin resistance. And so by using that fat for energy, you're actually kind of cleaning the body out, right? I've seen that it lowers cholesterol as well in the blood. You can measure this. It will even lower inflammatory markers as well, which has been studied numerous times. So there's multiple benefits to that.
Yes, and you know, studies have shown that in the early 70s, say 1970, the average American consumed 2,000 calories a day. But as we continue, like in 2000, we're consuming 3,000 calories. And what are those calories? Sugar calories and fat. As we overconsume calories, we store the calories as fat.
Yeah.
Then not only do we get obese, but we develop insulin resistance, significant inflammation, develop more chronic diseases, and as well as cancer. So overconsumption leads to obesity and diabetes. And I also am happy to mention the relationship to fat and diabetes. Many people believe diabetes is just extra sugar. You know, if I stop the sugar, but I can my fries and my saturated fat, the cheese and all of that, then I won't have diabetes. But that is the problem, as you mentioned, that the fat will inhibit the insulin from getting through the receptor site as the insulin takes the sugar. So I also advise the patient to do what we call a post-meal walk, right?
Okay.
Walking for about 10 minutes after meal is as effective as an insulin shot of 10 units, because the walk can increase insulin sensitivity. So insulin now will be able to transport more blood sugar across the receptor into the cell. So exercise is very important, especially after a meal. All right, any question? I'm going to check here on Facebook before I let you go, Mr. Ashwin. I think this has been, okay, so there's somebody asking here. Is there an anti-diabetic drug that also affect our weight, will cause weight loss? Okay, so I must mention that insulin will cause weight gain, but there's some diabetes pills, especially the newer ones, that tend to give some weight loss benefit. Now, I'm not going to go into the pills, you know, can discuss with your doctors, yes. But for example, metformin will give some weight loss, and we have some new drugs on the market that also can stimulate weight loss. But we don't want to promote diabetic medication to cause weight loss. We want you to lose the weight naturally, Marcy Charms. I see you there. We want you to lose the weight naturally. Going to a plant-based whole food diet, reducing the intake of calories, reducing fat, exercise, rest, stress management. All right. All right, Ashwin, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank our viewers. I want to thank Tamika, Donna, and everyone on the Zoom for attending. Tamika, for connecting you to us. And for the relationship that I see that Cooper Wellness Center will have with Uchee Pine. You know, I've heard about Uchee Pine for years. As a matter of fact, I wanted to attend Uchee Pine to learn some of this natural medicine, but it has been difficult. But bringing on Tamika and the new team, I think we are going to be working along with you guys, and I will get some of your knowledge that will be transfused to us through Tamika and to all the
that sounds good.
We can give quality medicine. I am a physician, yes, internal medicine. I do prescribe medication because there are a lot of patients who don't want to go the lifestyle medicine approach. They don't want to change their diet and exercise. Okay, doc, I just need a pill. So yes, I prescribe pills. However, my focus right now is education, educating the patient, because I believe that the patient's health is in the patient's hands. As healthcare providers, we assist the patients to understand where they are, what they need to do, and how to get there. But if the patient doesn't work hand in hand with you, prescribe insulin, if the patient doesn't get insulin, then the sugar will not go down. I can prescribe lifestyle medicine. And if they don't have the interest, nothing will happen. But if they have the interest, just one consultation, one interaction can make a significant difference in the patient's lives. And I really believe that lifestyle medicine is the wave of the future. And that is why we are here in the Rio Grande Valley at Cooper Wellness Center trying to expand, bringing in more lifestyle medicine educators so that we can give information locally. So I want to thank you, Ashwin. And for all of our listeners, if you need more information on what to do, how to reverse your diabetes, or how to, get treatment naturally, you can reach out to us at Cooper Wellness Center. Just go online and look for www.cooperwellnesscenter.com. That is our website. And if you're close to Uchee Pines, look for them over there, Uchee Pines. I want to thank you guys. I know you've been here long enough. Any last word from you, Ashwin?
Oh, I'm just very honored to be here, and thank you for having me, and looking forward to seeing all the good that will be done.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Let's get some rest, and we'll continue this another time. Bye-bye. All the best.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you, Ashwin.
Amen. Thank you. Good night.